Good afternoon. Thanks for joining. We have a great panel and facilitator lined up for tonight. This is our April meeting. The topic is promoting diversity and inclusion in cyber. I'm going to have a panel discussion. I'm going to start off with just by going through a couple slides that I have. There we go. So you can see me live and you can see my picture. I'm the president of the ISSA DC chapter. Welcome again. We do these on a monthly basis. So again, I'm not sure of who's in attendance tonight, but for folks that are new, and I know, at least when I saw the registration list, I know we had a few people that I did not recognize their names, so I assume that they are new to ISSA. So what you see on the screen, it's a little about ISSA. It's a little overview. It's a nonprofit organization. It's an international organization. We are just one chapter in the cog of the international organization. We're the DC chapter, otherwise known as the National Capital Chapter. And we provide knowledge, skills, and professional growth to our members and to our attendees. What we currently do is, because of COVID, we do this virtually on a monthly basis. Sometimes we've had two times a month, but normally it's one time a month. And what you do in terms of benefits, what you get out of being a member, here's a couple things. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of webinars, free webinars coming from ISSA International, where you can get CPE credits. And the topics have actually been very interesting. So by becoming a member, you get access to that. You get access to the monthly magazine. It's a little hard to network through GoToWebinar. That's the platform that we currently use to host these presentations each month. So networking is a little difficult. That's one of the downfalls by being virtual. But hopefully the country is getting back on its feet and people are getting more and more vaccinations. You know, the Maryland, DC, and Virginia area, I know it's going up and up and up, which is really good to hear. So hopefully we'll achieve herd mentality soon. But you also get discounts, and we usually have those discounts on our website by being a member for different training opportunities and different events. These are the dues. It's $95 for international and $25 for the chapter. If you're not a member, and I highly recommend that you become a member, it's not a very high cost. It's a lot of bang for the buck. You go to issa.org to actually register to become a member. This is our current board. As I introduced myself, I'm Scott Binder. We also have on the line with us helping host tonight. We've got Teresa Allison. Teresa, I don't know if you want to say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you, Teresa. So we've got Virginia as our executive VP. We've got Craig Kaplan as our CFO, David Zebarth as our VP of membership, Bronco Boken as our VP of communications, Mark Ferrer as our VP of education, and Loretta Dennison as our VP of strategic relations. So anytime you have a question, feel free to reach out to any one of us and we can help answer any questions or facilitate conversations. So again, the door is always open. So we host these virtual meetings the third Tuesday of every month. Usually kick it off around 6:30, and it goes from an hour to 2 hours, depending on questions, depending on topics. It varies. And speaking about presenters and topics, as you can see on the screen, this is kind of what the rest of the year is going to look like for us. So Teresa is our VP of programs, and she has done a fantastic job of lining up our speakers. Obviously, we got our panelists on the phone. I'm sorry, on virtually tonight, and we've got our facilitator for tonight's meeting. But for our next meeting, which is 1 month from today, we're gonna have a presenter, Mr. Wilson, Tyrone Wilson. He's the CEO of Cover 6. He's going to talk about enumerating and attacking with IPv6. Then come June, we're going to have a topic to talk about understanding the blockchain and its impacts on the future. That should be very interesting. I heard a little about that previously. I believe it was about a month and a half ago. From what I saw, it's going to be a great presentation. And then in July, we're going to have making the cyber world a safer place. So definitely looking forward to that as well. In August, Prem from Intellectual Point, he's the CEO. He's going to talk about creating the next generation of cyber professionals. And in September, we're going to have the new cyber risk model. We're going to have Dr. Crane from Carnegie Mellon University come and present his topic. Then we're going to have Kay Royale. We actually had her scheduled 2 months ago, and she got caught up in the Texas storms that knocked out power for like a week down there. So unfortunately, she wasn't able to present, but we have rebooked her. So looking forward to her presentation on security implications, Schrems 2, CCPA, and Brexit. And then November, we're going to have a CISO panel discussion. So again, these are our upcoming speakers. So stay tuned. Come back every month, third Tuesday at 6:30. We welcome you. Teresa, would you like to talk about this next? About Cyber Saturdays at Capital Technology University?
Sure, thank you, Scott. So, just want to let you know about an event called Cyber Saturdays. It's being held by Capital Technology University, and it's for high school students or community college students who have an interest in computers, coding, gaming, or cybersecurity. And so they have this fun kind of game-like environment that really energizes kids and has all kinds of different challenges like laser tag and treasure hunts and lock picking and all kinds of fun. So, definitely if you have kids who are in high school age or um, young students who are in community college, please let them know about this opportunity, and you can learn more about it on our website at www.isa-dc.org.
Thank you. So I want to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Cover 6 Solutions and Intellectual Point. They definitely make this happen. So again, big shout out to our sponsors. Thank you. Teresa, do you want to take this one as well?
Sure. I want to make everybody aware of our sponsor, Intellectual Points Training Opportunities. So one of the programs that they have is called the Vet Tech Program. And it's an opportunity for veterans to be able to take advantage of a grant of funding that's come in. It's $45 million worth of funding to make sure that veterans have opportunities to pursue a career in IT or cybersecurity. So if you want to know more information about the program, you can reach out to Intellectual Point, their website. You can give them a call. This money is money that goes beyond what people have in their GI Bill. It doesn't touch the GI Bill. It's a program that's set aside and different from the GI Bill. And it provides an opportunity for folks to pursue their CISSP or their CISM or other types of opportunities. So I definitely encourage you to spread the word because we want to be able to use all of this funding before it expires.
Thank you. We also have another training opportunity. Teresa, do you also want to take this one?
Sure, it's called the Army Cool program. And this particular program helps folks who are in military or in civilian positions who are interested in upgrading their credentials and obtaining cybersecurity or IT certifications. And there's quite a few, when I looked at the site, there's quite a few classes that you can attend. So you can do the AWS Solutions Architect training. You can do the Certified Cloud Security Practitioner, Certified Ethical Hacker, CCNA, CompTIA Network Plus, Pentest Plus. So I encourage you to reach out to Intellectual Point and learn more about this program and join it, be a part of it, and take advantage of that opportunity to get additional training when the government is paying for it.
Appreciate it. So this brings us to something that I want to talk about, and this is the June 2021 ISSA MidAtlantic Quarterly Summit. This will be our second summit of the quarter. Hopefully you were able to join our first one. And what this is it's a collaboration between really 3 local ISSA chapters, us being ISSA DC, the Central Nova chapter, and the Northern Virginia chapter and the Central Maryland chapter. So the Northern Virginia chapter, they put on the first quarterly summit 3 months ago. In March. Then from March, we're going to do a June meeting that Central Maryland is going to host. And the theme for their quarterly summit is cybercrime. And it's going to be on June 23rd. This is all being put together right now, so I'm giving you kind of the latest and greatest. Right now, we don't have a link established yet to register, but we will shortly. And we've got 2 speakers already confirmed. We're looking for potentially another, a third, potentially another 4th speaker. The speaker is Amber Schroeder. We've actually had her present to our chapter in the past. She's a fantastic speaker. She is from Paragon Corporation. And we have Sergeant Bedell from the Maryland State Police. He's also the executive officer with their Criminal Investigation Bureau. So we've got those 2 speakers. And again, the topics could be on cybercrime. So we highly encourage you to come out to, and again, this is going to be virtual, on June 23rd and listen to the cybercrime theme. And again, we're trying to get another potentially 1 or 2 more presenters for this quarterly summit. So then after June, our chapter, the DC chapter, we are hosting the quarterly summit, and that is yet TBD as to who our speaker will be. We're speakers. But as I know more information, I will definitely share it with you. Again, this is hot off the presses, and as I learn more, we will share it with you. So come back next month, and hopefully I'll have more information to share with you. So that leads us into tonight's presentation on promoting diversity and inclusion in cyber. So just before I turn it over to our facility or moderator, Deidre, I just want to say Larry Whiteside was supposed to be a panelist for tonight, and unfortunately we just received some information that he had a family emergency that he had to deal with, so he will not be able to join us tonight. It's unfortunate, but I'm sure Mark and Nathan can definitely carry Larry's weight and split it 2 ways instead of 3 ways. So Mark, Nathan, Deidre, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Looking forward to tonight's presentation and the panelist discussion. So with that, just before I turn it over, I just want to say one more thing. If anybody out there in the virtual world has any questions, please use the chat feature to pose your question, and we will be sure to chime in and make your question known. And hopefully the panelists and our moderator will be able to help answer or facilitate that question. So again, thank you all for joining, our attendees, our panelists, our moderator. And with that, I am going to go on mute and turn it over to Deidre. Please take it away.
Thank you, Scott. We got it. We got this. And I know you'll be listening and certainly chiming in if we miss any questions. But, hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Deidre Diamond. I'm the founder and CEO of CyberSn as well as Secure Diversity and a big fan of ISSA. I have been supporting chapters all around the US of ISSA for almost a decade. Truly, you are an organization of social servants and providing free and inexpensive training to our community, and I thank you for that. We need more social servants. So again, thank you, and it's good to be with you. And I've got two great panelists. We'll make up for Larry. I know ICMCP very well. I support them, and so does Nathan. We've been involved, so we'll cover that and share what ICMCP is doing here in a moment. But the way that we're going to roll is each of us are going to introduce ourselves and a little bit about the organizations that we focus diversity and inclusion support on. And then we're going to dive into the topics of diversity and inclusion. They are two very big words that have a lot of separate meaning. And so we're going to dive deep into them. So on that note, just to continue with the introduction of myself, Secure Diversity is an organization I founded almost 5 years ago that's been working to bring women into cybersecurity, lowering the wall of education as well as information about the jobs in cybersecurity. Being that CyberSn is the largest cybersecurity staffing firm in the US, it was super important for me to connect the entry level to the marketplace, and such Secure Diversity was founded. We have an event that we support called Day of Security. We just finished a few weeks ago. 1,700 women registered, 1,100 came for training, 112 women speakers, red team, blue team, EQ tracks, you name it. It's a great conference. So keep a lookout. We're doing another one this fall and one in India this summer. But on that note, I'll share more as we go and we'll get deeper, but let's get our panelists and we'll just go with our pictures here. We'll start with Mark, and Mark, introduce yourself. Yeah, I know.
I was hoping to follow after Nathan to see what I need to say. No, and thank you for having me, Deidre and Nathan. Good to see you, and Scott and Teresa. I'm Mark Casper. I'm the executive director of Tech for Troops. We're a nonprofit in Richmond, Virginia, that gifts or gives in-need veterans and their families honestly a free computer. So we actually teach them. We bring them into our training facility and teach them how to use it. We have a lot of vets who are older, mainly, who don't know the ins and outs of a computer. And literally, folks, when I say ins and outs, that really means plugging it in, turning it on, what's the internet, the whole 9 yards. So we start from that level and work our way up. And there are other things that Tech for Troops does, such as, we hire vets. We actually teach them the cybersecurity skills, networking skills, hardware and software skills, so they can get a better job. We're pretty successful at that. We have a vet at the Department of Defense up in the Pentagon, another one at Fort Lee at the NOC, and another one that's now a coder at Markel. And then what was really cool is two vets who came in on our last training session, which is 2 weeks ago. One vet, was a homeless, suicidal vet. He was an alcoholic living in an abandoned building, and he's now on his way, not because of Tech for Troops, but we helped him get there. He's now bought a car and he's working his way towards making $100,000 this year. So coming from, yeah, I know. And then the other guy walked in my door and he's like, I'm here to give back. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but I brought him into the class as I was talking to the other vets. And he's like, alcohol, drug addiction, I'm sober, I have a job, I'm secure, and here's your computer back because I want to give it to a different vet. And if that doesn't make your soul warm, I don't know what does, because it was an amazing feeling having this man walk back in out of the blue to say, here's a computer to give back, to give to somebody else. So that's Tech for Troops in a nutshell. I'm deeply humbled to be here tonight because I don't think I can bring what you guys can bring. I wish I could, but I will do my best. Thank you.
You bring plenty, and thank you for your service. And I got chills with your story. And we need to make sure that that everybody knows how to find you. How do they find your program? And we'll do it at the beginning, the middle, and the end. How do we find you?
It's techfortroops.org, techfortroops.org. And if you look, wait, wrong side. Wrong
Yeah.
side. You're looking at the camera, and it's like, look for the logo, right? And then you'll find us. And there's nobody else out there like us. We're one of 2 nonprofits in the nation that serve veterans the way we do, but we're the only nonprofit that serves veterans with the training and the skill sets to push them onto a different job, or a better job, I should say, support their families. So it's very humbling to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful program. Thank you so much. Well, Nathan, it's so good to see you. I feel it's been way too long. Usually I get to see Nathan at events. You're such an amazing ally to women. Nathan truly shows up and does the work. So share with us what you've been doing and what you're still doing, Nathan.
Sure. So I just started a new job at Microsoft as a senior consultant specializing in cloud security. I'm an advocate for diversity and inclusion, gender diversity, racial equity, and neurodiversity. I serve on multiple boards, including WISIS, Women in Cybersecurity Colorado, the WISIS Racial Equity Committee, Ignite Worldwide, and Spark Mindset. I'm also a foodie and enjoy playing video games. Got some events coming up. Ignite Worldwide has their big gala, their big annual gala coming up in next month in May. And WISIS is having their big national conference in Colorado in September. Hope you can join us.
Yes, I recommend it, ladies. WISIS is such a wonderful program. I also am part of a New England chapter and have been speaking at WISIS for the last 5 years. I think it's the largest group focusing on women in security. Yep, Nathan's shaking his head. They are international. In how many countries now, Nathan?
I've stopped counting, but it spread to, like, for example, India, Australia.
Wow.
The latest branches in Africa.
All
and
over.
Now France, UK.
All over, and super connected to programs, sponsoring women getting into security, sponsoring certifications, scholarships, right? Like super important. And the event of everybody getting together is also very special. Big fan of WISIS. And also, Nathan, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, because there's a big difference between diversity and inclusion, right? And so with the 2 words together, we can get a little lost, in my opinion. In fact, I wish we would switch them around and we'd say inclusion and diversity, because without the idea of inclusion, meaning making sure that everybody's included, we wouldn't have diversity. And so it's kind of backwards, everybody wants diversity, and yet it's the behavior of inclusion that has to be fixed first. And so I love that neurodiversity is something that you're specifically calling out, and veterans specifically calling it out, women, right? There's so many pieces. Age, as in my talent firm, it really hurts my soul how many people at the age of 50 or above that are super feeling discriminated against in job placement. And so I want to thank you again for bringing that to the table and specifically calling out not just gender, but also neurodiversity, and I want to call out age diversity and put that on the table here for discussion. So let's jump right in it. Our industry, cybersecurity, growing at the rate of 37% a year. I did a panel the other day with some of the top leading security healthcare experts, and was told that our attacks are going to be up to the 50,000 a day in the next 5 years. And that super scares the heck out of me. I'm sure it does you as well. So for me, this is about winning, the winning the concept of protecting ourselves, whether it be our government, our schools, our personnel, ourselves, it's everything. And so, why diversity doesn't even fit into the conversation anymore, right? Like, let's, we need everybody is my point, right? I mean, is that not the biggest point? What do you 2 think?
Nathan, you want to start?
Sure. Diversity inclusion, having more people involved, it is so critically important nowadays because we want to avoid groupthink. We want to avoid doing the same thing over and over because in cybersecurity, our attackers are very agile and very resilient. So if we don't change, if we don't adapt quickly, we can potentially lose the war.
Yeah, and they're diverse, right? Our attackers are literally diverse. They're all different countries, all different religions, races, ages, genders, and we don't even know as we're defending against them which one or which category they fall under. So if we're not thinking and covering our thought process of all those things, then how can you win, right? And so that's why it's like, Mark, I mean, the conversation, I hope it's not having to be had, like, why do we want diversity?
So I agree with the both of you on that. I'm gonna go into a little bit further. I think our one of the critical places that we miss, although most government contractors want the vet or the active duty transition as a security clearance, right? It's going to save them 80 grand, 150 grand, whatever that number is today. When I got out, it was a long time ago. But I think if we don't target the men and the women who get out, and even if they don't have a security clearance, but have the ability, and honestly, there's a lot of us that have the ability who don't know it. And I'll use me as an example. I'm not a real big tech guy, although I run a tech company. I'm the sales guy, I'm the thought guy, I'm the strategy guy. But if you sat me down in front of a computer and you gave me some tips and tricks, I could start that process, even now at my age, and probably become a relatively good junior level cybersecurity advocate as well as practitioner. So what needs to happen, I think, is we need to reach out to, and I think it happens, but not the way I want it to happen. I'll say it that way. If it was my way, magic wand, done, right? But we need to reach out long before they get out. If you don't know what SkillBridge is, every company out there needs to get SkillBridge certified. Reach out to the men and women. And honestly, you're right, Deidre. It doesn't make a difference, black, white, yellow, green, purple. It doesn't make a difference because somebody who's interested in serving the country again is the way to go. And I already took my oath of office, protect and defend the Constitution, foreign and domestic. I'm willing to do it again if I knew how, if they let me.
Yeah, it's a great point, and piece that you bring to this conversation is the federal perspective, right? Nathan and I play in the commercial space, and our work is, or at least I'll speak for myself, my work is primarily commercial space. And so there isn't even, nobody even needs a clearance to get hired in the commercial space. And so, and yet I always tell people that are entry level, start in the government because the government has it together more than the commercial space in terms of succession planning and training. I mean, when the internet started in the government, of course, therefore they're going to be ahead of us, right, than the commercial space. And truly the government, one of the reasons why it's, sort of slow, if you will, compared to commercial is that everything's planned out. Roles and responsibilities are clearly defined. The commercial space is like, as if roles and responsibilities don't even matter. And nobody knows what these roles are and what they need and what have you. So I like entry-level people coming into the government because there isn't a whole, way to get into the commercial space that's at scale by any means. And yet, you're talking about there is a financial barrier to get in, whether it's the federal space or the commercial space, which is why minorities and diversity doesn't exist, because there's a socioeconomic piece to that. And that drives me crazy. It is something on my list to go continue to tackle, which is the cost of education, the barrier.
So it's funny you bring up the education piece and the barrier. Tech for Troops is actually supporting Franklin Military Academy, which is an inner city school here in Richmond, and we're pushing. It's going to be tough to create a cyber lab, cyber training facility for these young men and women who, one, may want to join the military because it is ROTC, but at the same time learn some cyber skills. And then if we can replicate that throughout the nation, because I don't know if you ever look into the high schools and the middle schools who doesn't have a cyber track. Majority, I'd go with 90 to 95% don't have a majority cyber track.
Right.
That's not right. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yep, and I totally agree, Mark. And the other dimension is also technology, because The
Mm-hmm.
nations that are not that friendly towards the US, they're advancing really quickly into advanced new technology like AI, blockchain, cloud computing, and we as a nation, it quickly becomes a national security issue that we need to devote more funding for R&D to catch up. So that is a huge potential for cybersecurity right there to invest and to work into new technologies to protect all those assets.
I totally agree. Oh, go ahead, Deidre.
Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say I would challenge ISSA across the nation to take their chapters or bring their chapters into the local school systems and find out who's doing what and how they can get it. And it is diversity, but at the same time we're talking about cybersecurity. So as you mentioned earlier, it's not just men doing it, it's women doing it, it's young girls, and the kids who have the ability, they're there. We just have to ask them and task them and bring them to action for us. That's all. It's really what you have to ask them. Do you know that you can make $150,000 doing this? Oh no, I didn't know that. Well, you got to start somewhere, and you'll start out making 50, but guess what? In 5 years, you'll be making 150,000 if you're any good, and they're gonna be like, "Holy criminoli, really?"
Yeah, Mark, I love that you said that. That's one of the things I started promoting with women years ago. Is that there's great money here, you know, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. I think that, you know, there's fear of like cyber is extremely technical, and well, there are very technical roles, as you said, Mark. There's all kinds. In fact, at cybersn.com, we have the 45 job categories that we are constantly updating. It started in the 20s. It's super legit taxonomy of jobs and titles and roles. And I really tell people use it as a resource because there's so many different types of roles to include sales. Mark, I'm like you. I came up through sales. I have a cyber team that, you know, of course, my chief security officer reports to me, and they are weapons, as I call them, super intelligent people. Win at DEF CON last year and ranked 13, and yet I'm not the typical technology person that people think of, and so that's why we have to change this perspective. And it isn't. You can be highly technical, you can be medium, you can be low, and you can be none, so to speak, and still have a place here. And you know, none is kind of hard nowadays to be, but you know what I mean. I think the you know, the education of movies and television, everything really just put this poor persona out there, particularly for girls. You know, you need to be a bad person to want to be in cyber. I think people, you know, versus good people. So that work is being done for sure. And yet, you know, what ends up happening and what I see is that, you know, coming out of programs or school, it's still not skills enough to be valuable to commercial organizations. And it's mostly because they don't have succession planning and everybody's already overworked and doing 2 or 3 jobs. And so they can't possibly take on, you know, somebody new to train and develop. So we have to bridge that gap through programs like you're saying that are more hands-on, that are more like literally having experience through education. And that's, you know, that's starting to happen right now, which will be really helpful for sure.
Yep. We actually have an internship program where we bring in students, men, women, black, yellow, green, purple, and we teach them the hardware portion first before we do anything else. Because honestly, if you don't know what a CPU does, you know, see my eyes get bigger. They're just, it's like, come on, people, you got to know. You got to know how to tear a computer apart to put it back together, so you know what's going on, and not just jump into the middle of it and say, I'm going to be a cyber expert. No, yeah, you will, but Nathan will sit over there and school you, right? He'll challenge you to build your own gaming computer, and yeah, you'll be like lost.
Yeah. You know, you don't have to look very far on LinkedIn to see this conversation be pretty polarized, right? This, how technical do you need to be in cyber? And it really saddens me because it is polarized out there. And I'd like to say that it isn't one or the other. It's not like you're not technical or you're technical. There's such a variation in roles. And there is a need to be technical as much as there is a need to be business. It's people can be one or the other and be at the top without having both.
Absolutely.
Right?
I totally agree. Totally agree.
I mean, you know, you got to pick your partners, right? Meaning your fellow team peers and the executive team and everything needs to be, and director and VP level needs to be set up correctly. But at the end of the day, we can't be SMEs on everything. And so it's not just one's more important. I think that conversation is a waste of time. It's more like setting up the team so that everything's covered.
Absolutely.
No, go ahead, Nathan.
No, go ahead. You first, Mark.
I was going to say, and you know, when I was in Marine Corps a long time ago, and my computer, honestly, folks, it was big, it was clunky, it was old, it was 7 foot tall, 3 foot deep, and about 7 foot deep. Okay, and it had the little ticker tape that come out that said what was wrong, right? So it was a long time ago. But none of us worried about race, creed, color, or anything because we had a mission to do. And I think if we bring that mindset of the military and the mission, this whole, and don't take this the wrong way, this is, I hope we get to this. Diversity and inclusion will go away because there'll be so many people of all different everythings doing what we need to save the country, support your companies, and to truly make a change in the world. But we got to bring a mission together. We got to be very focused on that mission for the diversity and inclusion, because that's the only way it's going to be.
Yeah, and you know, I want to add this to what you're saying, which is we have to go out of our way to make it happen. Meaning, you know, the universities that are already full of people that have gotten their way into the system cannot be the only place we go. We have to go to the lower income neighborhoods who don't even, I thought what you were going to say earlier, Nathan, they don't even have computers.
That's true.
How are we, you know, we've got to go infiltrate, and I want to challenge big tech, you know, to go donate computers. I mean, come on, I donate all the time computers. I'm a small organization. I don't understand how we still have neighborhoods who don't have computers or at their homes, these children. How is it possible in the US? So, you know, call to arms. Let's go.
Absolutely.
And let's recruit those people, because here's the thing, people come to my firm all the time. I want to hire diversity. I want to hire diversity. Okay, great. It's going to take longer. You know, like, are you committed? Same thing. You want to fill this gap with diversity professionals versus, you know, just going to our current colleges and making sure that they're coming into cyber, which is what we need to be doing, or we won't have enough people. Then it's going to take more work. Those lines aren't set up like they are in the other universities through the career centers and what have you, right? So we need to get them out of high school and into our programs, because they're not going to college. They don't have a path. So we won't find them at the colleges.
And right? I totally agree, Deidre. I think one huge barrier is the perception of cybersecurity. One thing that happened like about a year or so ago is I said on social media that cybersecurity is more than hacking, and the responses was overwhelming. People were frankly shocked, and they were in agreement with me, because that's the unfortunate truth. Just so many people just have the perception that cyber is just hacking, but they don't realize it's like a rainbow. There are just many. I really praise you, Deidre, and CyberSn for coming up with those 35 or so roles, because if people were to look at that and to see there are just so many different roles to play in cybersecurity, they'd be more open to it. I think that almost like a army mindset. Like, yeah, some people will feel uncomfortable being on the front lines, but you don't have to be a front line. It's like an army still needs to eat, and you need people to support the army. So you can serve there, or you can, so logistics or even planning, there's a role for everyone in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And Deidre, you mentioned the schools. When the pandemic hit last year in Virginia, I went out and looked at how many students are there in Virginia, and there's 1.2 million, give or take, right? A little more, a little less. And then the number of kids who didn't have a computer in the house. there was well over 200,000 kids without a computer in the house. That's in Virginia alone.
It's horrible.
Right? So I went to my board, and I mean, we serve veterans and their children and the spouses, right? But I went to my board and I said, unacceptable. Let's help out the kids. And we were able to get almost 200 computers in the hands of kids. Now that's a drop, right? That's a drop. But at the same time, as you just said, if you're donating, if corporations, anybody listening in, look at a Tech for Troops to see if you can't get your computer equipment to us, because we ran out twice last year. We could have given more computers to kids if we hadn't run out. And we ran out for almost 60 days because everybody sent their employees home with their computers. And I get that piece, but at the same time, the need is great, and Tech for Troops can help that. There's others out there I can point you to. And Nathan said something that I wanted to ask you about earlier. The 45 jobs, I think you said it was 35, 45. Can I get that listing? Because I have a young black male. He just got his associates. He doesn't know what he wants to do in life. We're this close to hiring him, but on a short-term basis, not because we don't want him, but because we want to teach him the skills to get him a better job and get him out there, right? So if I can, and I've asked him numerous times, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. Do you want cyber? I don't know. So if I could get those jobs, I could put it in his hands and say, make a decision. I will help you.
Exactly. Oh, for sure. So at cybersn.com under resources, you can find the 45 job categories. And here's something even more beautiful. Nathan, I haven't had a chance to tell you. July 31st, CyberSn launches the CyberSn Marketplace, which is a complete new digital experience with a career center from entry level to CIO, what every job is mapped out in definition, tied to titles, and then how do you move? A whole digital experience of that. Plus, every cyber job in the US will be on the platform. Of course, our jobs using the taxonomy, and anybody that wants to convert their job to the taxonomy that actually works. And then all, salary guide information, total compensation information, real time. I mean, it's just, as time, for us, we're at that place to be able to give that content. It is the #1 problem we have for the entry-level people, is that everybody wants to hire somebody that's passionate about what their job. But then all these entry-level people are like, well, I don't know which job to do. Well, that doesn't show up as passionate. And so they do these interviews, and I hear it all the time. I can't, that person doesn't even know what they want to do. And so Mark, that is so common,
It is common.
It is. So what's there already will help you out. And yes, to everybody's listening. And Mark, if I could get that information from you, and you can really handle the supply chain of donations, if I put that on social media, the people that follow me will, definitely stand up. And I would love to do that, because it's really the supply.
Yeah, and as Nathan mentioned, cyber's not just hacking. I don't know if this is a real good definition, but like what we do when we wipe computers that we receive, we use White Canyon, but that whole portion as well, which is so critical to data destruction, is I think it's not really cyber, but it's part of cyber at the same time, because you're masking, you're destroying, you're ensuring that that information does not get out to a bad actor. We do that as well. So I'm with you. Deidre, I'll get you that information. We're LinkedIn. Nathan, we're LinkedIn. So, would love to pass that as well. And there's, I don't know if we really haven't hit this, but we do a hack for troops. So I know you guys have ISSA, that is, have all of these things going all year long, but in October, Cybersecurity Month Federal, we do a hack for troops, and all students play for free. Actually, all competitors last year played for free because it was online, and we didn't charge anybody. But we'll have high school, or do what?
Oh, I just said that's awesome.
Yeah, and we're actually at 2 locations right now. Well, one for sure, one in Richmond, butts in the seat, kids playing, professionals playing, competing, capture the flag. And we're in conversations with Dallas, Texas, one of the localities down there, to do it. But it'll be promoted, play, it's a good time. Last year we had West Point, 2 teams from West Point and 1 from the Naval Academy competing. So bring it in, let's get the kids playing, and they don't have to know, because we're going to have junior level competition or challenges, and we're going to have professional level competition challenges, and hopefully we'll have some good stuff going on between cities and states and all that other kind of stuff.
I love gamifying learning. I think it's brilliant,
Yeah.
especially in this industry where, as we just said, it's not all about hacking. And even if we were just looking at hacking, it's about how to think about how others think, feel, and perceive, so that you can think about how they may trying to get to you or your information. And so, you know, gamifying is super important. I love that. I super love that. You know, I encourage people. So let me tell you the roles that are the biggest amount of roles that come to CyberSn nationally. It's anything cloud security, cloud engineering, of course, right? Application security, DevSecOps through the roof. IAM became its own functional role. That's, you know, part of Nathan why it's went from 35 to 45 in the last year is IAM, DevOps. It's no longer a security engineering, you know, they're doing both or multiple, you know, it's now its own functional role at scale, just doing IAM, just doing DevSecOps, right? And then we saw a high level of in the last 12 months of professors needing teachers. So those of you that are out listening, that part of the industry has really significantly increased, as well as director roles, management roles, which is such a beautiful sign of all my years since 2007 to see finally. I mean, you know, if you're hiring directors and managers, you're preparing for scale, you're preparing to really have a lot more people instead of like the chief information security officer and then a couple of engineers, you know, which is really how the commercial space has been for quite some time, other than the Fortune 100. And so that's really nice to see. But those, you know, privacy, of course, is upon us. Privacy tech is upon us. So we haven't yet seen the demand in the jobs, so to speak. It's really at the law level. You know, that's where the jobs are, and people don't call to hire a lawyer from us. You know, they're just going to law firms, but it's it's law privacy jobs that have just gone through the roof so far, which is fascinating. You know, that of course they're probably, you know, policies and, you know, things like that before it trickles down into operations. But you know, and those roles, everything that I just spoke about requires experience. It's years of experience. So I keep sharing that to say, you know, as much as we can get hands-on in even these CTFs and gamifying, you know, those types of, you know, jobs, if you will, you know.
By the way, Deidre, I think you brought up a very good point. I'm really happy that your group came up with those job categories, because in my experience, a huge barrier is the job descriptions. Like, I remember one story, there's one job description that required 10 years experience on this new future tech, when the new tech has only been around maybe 5 years. I would go as far as I would challenge organizations such as NIST and ICE and NIST and all the various state governments to adopt your framework for those job descriptions. I think if that was in place at the federal government level, and at the state level, and to the local level, if it's standardized across the board, it'll clean up a lot of these barriers.
Yeah, Nathan, the conversations are being had. So let's knock on some wood, because I agree. My vision is that, you know, you only need to go to one place to find every job, whether it be government, commercial sector, not-for-profit sector, everything organized. That's what a marketplace is to me. And so I have everything right now except for the federal government. That being said, we're in conversations, and it is NICE and NIST that refer to us, and that is and does speak to how awesome the taxonomy is that we've created. And I agree, it would really eliminate so many problems that we're having. One language.
If I could, when you mentioned gamifying, I've heard that before. I've never used that before. I love that. Now I'm going to use it now, right? I'm going to make sure I use that. One of the things that we're saying when we see this will be our 5th year. Our 3rd year, of course, 4th year was the lost year, which was completely online. But the 3rd year, we had a young woman walk in the door. She was in the Cisco Networking Academy, but she didn't have a computer. She didn't have a personal computer, which really torques me off. But
Yes.
that was the moment where I knew that Tech for Troops as a whole could make a difference in her life, because we had an extra. We had a couple extras actually, and I sat her down and I gave her a computer. Of course, she almost cried, but she didn't. She was good, and she competed. And it was one of those things where you just sort of look at it and go, why don't our kids have computers? And it's not. At times it is a diversity issue, but other times it's not. And we got to be extremely aware of that. Well, case in point, when Tech for Troops gave out almost 200 computers, we went out to Bedford County, which is Western Virginia, extremely rural, great folks out there, and it was all colors came in, all, right?
Yeah.
It was Hispanic, it was Black, it was white, and these were people with no computer in the house, and we gave out computers that day, and that's what we all need to work towards, because we all have I don't have any. I gave mine to Tech for Troops already, but most people have computers in the garages and in their closets. Let's make sure they get recycled. Let's make sure they get used or reused, I should say. You know, that helps the carbon footprint as well. Let's go. This Tech for Troops, our goal in the next year or so is to get carbon neutral.
Oh my gosh,
Straight
I
up.
love it. I'm going to promote. We're going to get so many computers your way.
We're not there yet. We're working on it. Go ahead, Nathan.
And the other piece is missing is internet, because
Yes.
not just computers, a lot of households throughout the US lack even a decent internet connection. In this day and age, a computer and having internet in one's home, it should be just as basic as electricity and water and food. It really should be stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the federal government and what they did when they brought power to people's homes in the 30s, it ought to be the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and so, you know, that's what we're talking about here. I'm turning on light. It got dark outside. You know, I really think that we've all got to, be the leaders to say, look, this is an economic thing, meaning this lack of people coming into this industry. This is an economic thing, and we need to go to the neighborhoods that are economically challenged, that are close by us. They're not far, from where anybody's living, and go figure out what's going on and get involved, because we really are social servants here in cybersecurity, and solving problems is what we do, and that's the problem. And you nailed it. Computers and internet. Let's get computers and internet into their hands, and then let's get to these schools. Let's tell them we all have programs that we're associated with for high school and 18 and over, all of us. Everything we're doing. In fact, that's what Secure Diversity is doing after the CyberSn Marketplace. Is Secure Diversity is going to be the marketplace for all diversity and inclusion organizations to be found. And so, because it really takes all of us, and yet we can't be so separated. How do people find people find these programs we're all involved in, right? It's super hard. I'm going to solve that, because one person could benefit from all 3 of our programs and ICMCP, and there's so many other ways. There's black girls in cyber, right? There's all kinds of other programs. There's cyber jitsu. I mean, I can name a lot of them. So all of us need to be able to be found, because we're doing great work and we can put more people into our programs, but also we gotta go out to these neighborhoods and that are economically challenged and get involved, because it's taking too long. It's just taking too long.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you there, Deidre. To share with you one story, I remember there was one young gentleman, he wanted to get into cyber, and his mom was only able to enroll him in a online cyber academy because she saw it in the newspaper. That's how hard it is, because a lot of people, they want to get into cyber, they want to be educated, but they're just not aware of these programs, like kind of like what you said, like In some areas, they don't have computers, they don't have internet, they're barely getting by. So those areas that are in greatest need, we really need to outreach them.
Exactly. And connect them to free training, connect them to all, you know, it super dawned on me not too long ago that that's what I need to do with the Secure Diversity platform, just because I've been around so long, I know everybody, and I want to bring people to one place to get their programs really adopted. Yeah.
I don't know if you can add this to your program, Deidre. What you might want to think about it is recruiting teachers.
Yes.
Because I think that's the biggest issue, right? So you know, if you have a cyber expert who's 65 years old, wants to retire because they've made their money and they're doing their thing, why not put them in school for 3 to 5 years to start the program, to teach the program, inner cities, rural schools. I'm thinking of where I'm at now in Virginia. In my county, there's no cybersecurity. I'm actually ashamed of that now. Now that we're talking about it and I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, crap, how can I make that change?
Yeah. Oh, I love you. You're awesome, man.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
dude.
love that. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, like I think we need to ask these big tech companies too that we all know, we all have friends at, why can't we pay, you know, what it costs to have a good cyber professional be a teacher? Why do we have to continue that teachers don't make good money? I'm so sick of that too, you know? So
and now we have COVID. Because with COVID, economic fallout from COVID, state budgets across the country have been decimated. I'm pretty sure that has resulted in education budget cuts. I even saw on social media and the news, some schools and colleges are eliminating their cyber programs altogether. Yep. All because of lack of funding.
My God, first it was music. How do you go from music and arts to cyber? I'm not sure. Other than maybe they're not finding the support from it, because how are they selling it? What's the, you know, like, what's the marketing material? It's probably not good, or stuck under computer science, and computer science doesn't have a good rap either.
Right.
Right? It seemed also super techy, blah, blah, blah. So that's probably why they probably
sign
up.
Real quick, to give you an idea, one gentleman who's really a real top-notch professor in cyber, he wrote many cyber books. His school asked him. So that tells you how the extent of the problem. If one of the top professors in cyber was asked, that tells you there's a huge problem in education.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking there's no reason why we can't get the larger corporations, you know, the Fortune 5,000, Fortune 5,000 companies, and be able to bring in instructors, because I know that Franklin Military Academy, which we're trying to support, they have an issue with finding a teacher for the cyber lab. Right? There's people who want to do it, but they're not cyber experts. They have the passion for it without the expertise. And going to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, and going to their engineering and cybersecurity folks and saying, can we get, I guess you would call them doctoral students to teach? You know, that's one teacher 1 year, one teacher a different year, a different teacher different. That's not going to be a program that kids are going to want to get behind, because they're going to have a great teacher 1 year, a crappy teacher the next year, a great teacher 1 year, crappy. No, let's figure this out. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, and you know, money is the reason. I mean, come on, like, money keeps us all in safety. Unfortunately, it is freedom money, truly. And so to like suggest that somebody should, you know, make a bunch less because they're going to go teach is just so crazy to me. It's nutty. And so that's why we have to, I suppose, whatever, make it a private, but service the socioeconomic challenged communities in a private funded tech companies, you know, like, why not? There's such.
I had an idea when thought came to mind. They should make it more almost mandatory. They should make it almost like the draft, every cybersecurity professional should donate a portion of their time each year to help educate.
Yeah, that could
Imagine.
be, yeah, as a call to arms to our community. I hear you, donate your time. The challenge
I would
is,
say change.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say change the tax laws.
Yes.
And the reason why is corporations who spend their 8 hours per employee volunteering at one location for one day doesn't do a daggone bit of good, but they get a tax break on that one. 1,000 people, 8 hours, 8,000 hours, and they don't pay taxes that year. So how about if we change the tax laws to where we make it nice or enticing for I'm going to use Capital One. They're one of the bigger ones in Richmond, Virginia. And I don't have anything to do with Capital One. Don't think I'm pointing at them. I'm not. I'm just using them as an example. But have Capital One take one of their employees to teach for 3 years, and they pay him for that.
Right.
Why, Nathan? You said that. Why don't?
Right. Yeah. Talk about a great retention strategy too. It's like a sabbatical. We all say, like that's a great sabbatical, and yet still staying hands-on, close to the flame, whatever we want to call it. I totally agree. And, so I'm so glad you said that, because here's what comes to my mind, Mark, is that we have to change the tax laws that happened in the late 80s that made it to where employers are paying people as contractors. And contractors, guess what? You don't invest in training in contractors. It's illegal to invest in training for your contractors, which is why, for me, like, I wouldn't even get into the contracting business unless my clients would pay for the training that I need to pay. I put it into the hourly rate so that they can still get their certs and everything else. Why would I want to do that? It's just a revolving door then. And so my point is that, like, we have to invest in people in general. And the fact that we have these CapEx, OpEx, employee write-off, tax laws is making it to where we now more and more contractors in tech, not cyber yet, but in tech, there's more contractors than permanent employees. That means people aren't investing in training. That's what that means.
I think you just hit on a new definition for inclusion as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, our laws are causing division, lack of inclusion. Yes, it makes me crazy. I mean, the contracting business is so unattractive to me because of that, which is why, I've done what I've done. But, it's just terrible. Now, Uber and Lyft are getting tested on that whole, that I've been watching that very closely. But, and there's talks of unions in tech coming. Right? We've just started hearing that kind of stuff, but it's because they're not being cared for. I mean, I say this all the time. Nobody calls CyberSn because of money. That's not why they call. It's not money. It's one of two things. They're not their career. There's no investment. There's no strategy. There's no training dollars. There's no, this is how we're going to advance you. Or the culture is, whether one person or multiple people, that make it miserable for that person. And it only takes one person to make it miserable for another person. And so it's either EQ skills or lack of investment. It's those two things. And that's it. There's nothing else. Of course, they want more money before they make a move. And of course, that's part of it. But that's not what starts this whole looking process. So I'm super concerned about our, just our own, maybe take a little bit of a turn here around inclusion, because that's where we went, is to say we've got a lot of attrition issues. We've got contract really creeping into our space big time, in terms of like cybersecurity professionals being contractors, which means don't invest in them and treat them differently. Typically, that's what it means anyways. And yet we've got this gap of people coming in, so it's like, that's why I started, what I did, which is, oh my gosh, I'm bringing all these women in, but these cultures aren't inclusive. they're not even ready for them. They're not even talking about their behaviors and what it means to have inclusive behaviors. And that's why I started doing EQ training and about 4 or 5 years ago for the cyberspace. And so anyhow, my overall point is to say, yeah, you know, we can't have diversity without inclusion laws like tax laws and other laws, and we can't have diversity without inclusion spend, you know, like really putting money into getting to the lower income neighborhoods. And so us leaders need to go, you know, get our peers moving and grooving, right?
I know you're absolutely right, because cyber also needs a lot of funding. One example is when I started my very, very first cyber job was at Gymboree. I was not even making a 6-figure salary. It was way, way less than that. So that goes to show how some companies, they will not pay market rate, because a lot of these companies, they're quite frankly, they're struggling to survive because of like the economic impacts from COVID. If it comes down to a cyber person versus going bankrupt, it's a no-brainer what choices a company will make. They will rather go keep the company going instead of hiring a cyber person.
Yeah, it's true that, you know, there is really no end to cybersecurity spend, right? And it is a very difficult task for a CEO or an executive team to have to decide what is the appropriate spend, especially if they're not coming from cyber themselves to really understand it. And we know that not everybody does it's even leading cyber programs, you know, in terms of how to set it up most cost effectively, you know, and really get the most bang for your buck. It's still a process that a lot of people are going through. And so, yeah, I don't blame these organizations. That's scary. Like, where does it stop? 5 years ago, there wasn't even a spend for most of these organizations. Now it's, you know, 8-digit, 9-digit, you know, where does it end? And so I feel bad for particularly, you know, the larger organizations that are older, and it's just so costly. And yet, my gosh, it's just the world we live in. It's the attacks are increasing. I've been telling people, like, the last 2 months, I feel like attacks must be happening every day, because we were busy. Now, I mean, the phones, it's hard to get to everybody that needs our help.
Yeah.
You know, not the professionals looking. I'm talking about the employers. And you know, I'm hiring all the time. So it's heated up, and I'm nervous about those that are, you know, like, who's going to lose? Because at the end of the day, we're really taking people from one company and sticking them in another. That's what's going on. The gap isn't getting filled very quickly and at all, and it takes 3 to 5 years to get some, you know, to really be in those seats, so to speak, of high impact. And so I am nervous. You know, it's going to come down to product companies too. It can't just be humans, although what we're all talking about has to happen. We got to get some product solutions in here too that are going to make a big difference, because the attacks are just way too many. So scary. I feel so bad for so many organizations, you know?
Yeah. It's coming down to where if we as in the country don't do what we talked about earlier in terms of reaching into, honestly, I'm going to go as low as early middle school. So, you know, 6th grade, and start figuring out what kids are interested and then trying to sell the rest into it. And don't take that the wrong way, but if you have an interest, you have an interest, and not, they still need to they still need to read, write, arithmetic, but they also need to take coding classes so they can understand. And they also need to be able to take the cyber classes, the security plus, A plus, that kind of stuff, so they can get out. But I would hope that if there's any companies on the call right now, and anybody out there is going to listen or watch us, that you actually look at bringing in younger kids to your employment as an intern for a summer to see if they have what it takes. Of course, you want to make sure they fit, but then if they do, hire them. Not that they have college, because they don't, but that's okay. You don't need college today to be a cybersecurity expert. You don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's move away from that whole get a degree, 4 years coming out $100,000 in debt to going straight into making 55,000.
Absolutely, totally agree. And by the way, another organization I also help out with is Ignite Worldwide. And to your point, Mark, they do just that. They engage girls as early as middle school. They do things like have panel discussions so they can see a woman working in a STEM field, and they can be inspired by amazing people who are executives or whatnot working in these big tech companies. And before COVID, they would also take busloads of girls to these companies so they can have workshops and whatnot. So the organizations like Ignite Worldwide, they help. I think the other piece is neurodiversity, because people such as myself who have ADHD, conditions such as ADHD and autism, we are often ignored, but nowadays it could be the key to filling the cybersecurity skills gap. To give you one example, we had an incident at one of my previous employers once where the VP was getting locked out of his iPhone. So we did a visual kind of like IR response. We started digging into the security log. So because I have autism, within less than an hour, I was able to figure out from the logs he had a unchanged password on his iPhone that was duplicate. We took this other gentleman from the NSA a whole day to come to the exact same conclusion. So that's a huge untapped resource right there. People such as myself who are neurodiverse.
Yep.
And the sad truth is, if we in the US do not hire neurodiverse workers to fill these cybersecurity jobs, look at across the ocean, the hostile nation states are recruiting them, even sometimes even at gunpoint. And guess who's going to win the war? Those who have the specialized skills.
Yeah, you say that, and now that I understand what neurodiversity means, thank you. I actually have an older autistic man on my staff who actually is an amazing employee. He does what he does, and he doesn't bother anybody. He does his thing, and honestly, I trust him straight up, because I know that he's going to do it to the 100% each and every time, and I have no qualms whatsoever about talking to him and saying, hey, you need to do this, and he'll be like, okay, done. And I love it. I love it. You know,
absolutely.
And actually, there's a company right up the road from me that works with special needs kids, and I'm going to go talk to the owner. I know her; she's a friend, but I'm going to go talk to the owner and say, have you thought about starting a training program for these younger kids? I mean, these are 5, 6, 8 years old, but if they have an idea that they want to be in computers, man, they could be a rocket scientist.
Absolutely. And another example is, look at the Israeli military. They have an entire cyber unit just totally filled with neurodiverse people who are on the autism spectrum, and they're perhaps elite.
Can you send me a link on that?
Yep. Yes,
I'll give that to her. I'll give her that and make sure that she understands where I'm coming from, because neither one of us are. I mean, Deidre, you and I are sort of the same. Nathan's like this here, and I'm like here, right? But
yeah,
I'm a sales guy, and that's what she is as well. And I'd rather say, hey, read this, because here's what I think you may be able to get into as a new program. And it's actually gaming for kids right now, just learning the basics of cybersecurity.
Yes.
What did you call it? Gaming? What would you call it, Deidre?
Gamify. Gamify. It's the funnest thing ever. We gamify our security training, and it's super fun at CyberSn. To that point, Nathan, that we've got to get more focus on what we're talking about. Diversity is everybody. Even white men who they're still left out of the cyber conversation. While that's not, there's more of them. There's still the schools in general. My point is, are just not promoting at all. It's cyber. Nope. And so we still have work to do there. If anybody wants, I put a video together about 4 years ago at DEF CON of all these different women speaking about what they do in cyber. It's about 15 minutes, and we all look different, and so that's the thing. It's like, that's diversity, is also when people, look different, are, from the perspective of all the things we just talked about, but also act different, meaning have come from different cultures or neurological, backgrounds and experiences. And we need to highlight that. We need everybody.
You brought up an interesting point. I think there's also a roadblock with some executive slash tactical managers, because if you think about it from a military point of view, there will be some people who are of the opinion that they would prefer a homogeneous, non-diverse unit, because they would say like the unit functions faster if it's not diverse. And I could see pros and cons to that, but the reality is it does need to be diverse, because we need to break groupthink. There's some people, such as myself, who are really good at cyber, but others, they just want to do things the old-fashioned way. As the saying goes, monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah. Well, luckily the stock market and capitalism has actually finally put a price tag on diversity, because we know when that happens, things change. And it's been proven that diverse groups actually perform better. It's been proven that groups that are led by people with high emotional intelligence perform better. And so all of that, I think, anybody who's paying attention can tell. I mean, we've got bonuses for executives on diversity stats. We've got bonus for executives on staff retention, which is a diversity and inclusion challenge. And so, but really now it's about, what do we do? How do we do this? And part of it is not having the talent. Part of it is not looking at talent the right way. Part of it is the inclusion behaviors in your own organizations and policies, and just, EQ of your teams. And so it's really all these things that, we must tackle at once. And I think it's upon us, but it's really in its infancy. and here's the other thing. How about once diversity people come in, the investment to move up the chain? I mean, that's something I've been focusing on the last 2 years with Secure Diversity, which is women advancing past middle management. Why am I the 1%? I know why I'm the 1% tech founding CEOs, because it's only 1% of the time does somebody walk into what I walked into out of college, which was 2 serial entrepreneurial men training and promoting from within. I worked for them for 21 years across 3 different companies. I mean, that was how they rolled. You don't lose people, you move people and you build businesses. And so that's why I'm the 1%. And that makes me crazy mad, because that means that my sisters and my, fellow, minorities that weren't in the space, how do you even have a chance to get to an executive level role, which changed my life at, when I got there at 28 and never looked back, and I'm about to turn 50, like it's not fair. And so that we don't have that investment to get past middle management. So my point is, let's put all the problems out there, everybody get involved and help. Yes.
I think one step further, I think it comes down to essentially organization need a culture change, because at the end of the day, there's just so many factors like race, nation of origin, gender, ageism, neurodiversity. But if you remove all that, it comes down to the basic level, which is one person, which is the manager, asking all their direct reports, what do you need in order to thrive at your job? It's this simple one question that covers the whole spectrum, everything across the board. It's that one question.
A caring question, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to go a half step further, not with what you said, Nathan, but what Deidre said. Is it's the culture, but we need to get away from the mandatory educational higher education, right? So just because you have a bachelor's degree does not make you smarter than a person who doesn't have a bachelor's degree, because I guarantee you there are electricians and pipe fitters and welders out there that are just as brilliant as you two are, but they don't have a degree, right? Yeah. They just don't have the same skill set. So those people who don't have the bachelor's and master's and the PhD in a larger corporation, no, they probably have better ideas, or some ideas that could be better than what you have, just because you think you're smarter and you're not.
Yeah, it's interesting. The stats are still showing that people with degrees make more money than people without, like at a high significant level. The challenge is, or the good news is that people will hire people in cyber without degrees all day long at every level. It's really about the experience. So I'd say degrees would be great if they actually got people jobs. And yet these 4-year degrees are not getting cyber professionals jobs.
I agree there. I think education as a whole needs to change, because if you look at some organizations such as Google, their education model is completely different. They don't, for those, especially those who cannot get a traditional 4-year degree, they have online programs where a person can go through the training online, and then they go through something kind of like a mentorship program where they can get experience and then job placement. I think that is the kind of system that is needed now to get rid of the old traditional outdated thinking. It's kind of like how even US military operated before. They kept planning for a 2-theater war before, and then they realized over time the needs of the military changed. So now the US military is much more agile, more adaptable. I think that is the kind of change that is needed in education today.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And, it's happening with programs like Mark's doing, and all of us and others that are out there, all the war ranges, and I want to see more of those, which is why I want anybody that's listening that's associated with that in the Career Center, CyberSn Marketplace is going to be free training section. So people that are looking for free training, paid training, let's take down that barrier of
and the other missing piece is experience. Another thing I do champion is community service. Like, you don't have to have a full-time job on your resume to count on service. Like, as you described, Deidre, the CTFs, the competitions, even further, community service, like just volunteering your time. Because the biggest areas that need help are the mom and pop shops. Because as many stories have shown, hackers do not target say the Pentagon directly. They go after the small mom and pop shop, like your dentist, the flower shop. They hack those areas first, then they combine all of them to a huge, like a botnet army, and then they do their massive attack. But that is where cybersecurity is perhaps the weakest, the small mom and pop areas. So I would recommend that. Just volunteer, kind of like community service, do a lot more community service to rack up the cybersecurity experience to put in your resume and to help out your local communities.
Such a great
I totally agree with that. I went into a shop a couple of years ago and asked them, so what are you using for your firewall? And they said Comcast. And I just started laughing.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, they don't do anything. No, they protect me. No, they don't. No, Comcast does not protect you.
Yeah, it's really scary, the amount of ransomware that these small private, and we need these small organizations. They're the heart, of our economics, and just
also the schools too. If you look at the numbers, pretty much all the schools are under massive cyber attack, and ransomware is probably the #1. And with the economic fallout from COVID, like the state budgets and education budget are slashed, and what are these schools going to do when they're under cyber attack? They can't afford a cybersecurity consultant. So that is another area where volunteer work can be tremendously beneficial, and I would encourage nonprofits to do that. And I'm encouraging ISSA and other organizations as well to do that, because that way it's win-win. A cybersecurity professional with little or no experience can go to their school or local community, help out, get cyber experience, and the community benefits, and the person benefits by gaining experience, which is directly transferable onto a resume and to a job.
I think that's a great way to wrap up, Nathan, is to say, hey, everybody, you're here because you care, clearly, and really we can all get into our own communities and into our own companies and get them involved in all the programs that are happening, like the ones we're talking about here today and others, and also get yourself involved in going out into your community and helping.
I'm going to hit that there's not a nonprofit out there, except for the larger ones, you know, the large ones that don't need help. I'm just going to tell you that, even if it's an art store or you know, a dog and cat shelter, they need help, and they have no idea they need help. But you walk in the door and say, hey, I'm here, I'm a cyber guy, boom,
Yeah,
they're going to love you to death forever and ever, amen.
for sure. Well, we talked over an hour, gentlemen. I was like, thought we, you know, goodness gracious. And that's so wonderful. Anybody that didn't catch the whole talk, we're recorded, we will release, and we'll certainly be posting on LinkedIn the organizations that we talked about today. And Teresa, thank you for organizing us. It was lovely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great to get all of you together. I really admire all the things that you do and all the missions you support, and just happy to have you here with us. So,
Ditto.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
thank you again from the whole chapter, the board of directors. Thank you again. This was actually really, really good. Good information. I'm glad we recorded it. We will be posting this shortly onto our website, so others that were not able to join us today can view it in the future. So again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but please come back next month, third Tuesday of the month. Please look on our website, issa-dc.org, for the latest and greatest information. And with that, I think it's dinner time, at least for some of us.
I got another call to get on. All right.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
everybody.
thank you.
for
Thank you,
having me.
Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Do we have any questions out there? I didn't see any, but let's see. I don't see any questions.